All right, here we are in the Painted Desert of the Navajo Nation in Arizona, and we're going to take a look at some Badlands. It's a bit of an established area here with some picnic tables and grills, but it has seen better days. It's not looking like it's in good shape. So it's a very cool view. You can see the San Francisco peaks to the west by the city of Flagstaff. We're just north of Winslow, Arizona. And here's some of the Badlands. Some nice colors. But I'm going to keep driving and get to a point where I think I can easily walk down into the Badlands and then we'll see what we can see. It looks like this is a paved road, or it was a paved road. It's not been maintained, so it's a little bit in rough shape now, but it's a road that will take to drive north until, like I said, we get to a point where I could probably more easily descend down into the Badlands. Nice views though, to the left, to the west. All right, we have made it here to the end of the loop, the end of the road on the north side of the park here. And it's a beautiful blue sky day. It's very dry, big blue skies, no clouds. It's been a while since we've had a day like this, and it's relatively warm. It's about 50, maybe 55 degrees right here. So let's take a walk and we'll see where we can go. It's a pretty cool spot. Pretty windy here, and it's a little windy today. Sometimes we get breaks from the wind, but it's breezy. Pretty nice walking though. The soil at the top here is very loose and sandy, so it's very soft walking, very soft to walk through. So the geographic feature, the geologic feature known as Badlands, is a landscape wrought by water. And it's a landscape that you'll find all across semi-arid landscapes. You might know them best in South Dakota. The Badlands of South Dakota are very well known. There's a national park named after them. You'll find Badlands all throughout the Painted Desert of Arizona, including at the Painted Desert, or the Petrified Forest National Park on the eastern side of the Painted Desert, closer to the New Mexico border. The Badlands are characterized by pretty soft sedimentary rocks that are easily eroded by runoff. And so that's why you get all of these little patterns in the rock, and the sediments are taken away to the local rivers. In this case, it'd be the Little Colorado River. Eventually that flows into the Colorado River near the Grand Canyon. But all the different colors you see, those are just different layers of sedimentary rocks. So there's a little bit of a draw here, and it actually looks doable. So I think I'm going to descend down into this area right here. Okay, so actually I take that back. It looks tame right here, but then once it gets over here, it gets extremely narrow. And a little crazy. So we're going to keep going and see if we can find a more gradual way. It looks like there will be a more gradual way based off of what I can see on the satellite maps. So these are cool rock features here. One thing you will find in the South Dakota Badlands that you won't find here is bighorn sheep. In South Dakota, bighorn sheep love the Badlands. They crawl up and down them, they live on them, they sometimes get themselves hurt, but they were made for landscapes like that. So they love the Badlands. They're good lands to them in that sense. So unfortunately, we will not find bighorn sheep here. Maybe historically there were bighorn sheep here. It would not be unreasonable to assume that there were, because the range of bighorn sheep has shrunk a lot over the past 150 years or so. And they used to live in many more places than they do now. So it's actually kind of a wonder that they are in South Dakota still. But oh, look at that, a little hole right here. But that is one thing that you will find in South Dakota. Another thing you'll find in the South Dakota Badlands are buffalo, bison. You will not find bison here, unfortunately. Old fencing. Okay, now this area right here looks like a better area to descend, so that is what we will do. All right, so I just made it down from up there, and I'm going to keep heading down. It actually gets easier. It gets more gradual the further you go down. Although there's some pretty loose sediment here, so it'll be pretty soft. All right, so I'm still following this little drainage inside the Badlands here. It's pretty cool. Looking toward the west, seeing the San Francisco peaks. So it's much flatter right here. And the drainage forms its own little trail. It's very nice. I'm going to climb up one of the little ridges here just to see what the view is on top of this one. It's just a little soft walking up this. It's not too soft. It's not like it's going to give way, but it's also not rock hard. Actually, somebody's walked here before. It looks like there's some, whether it was an animal or a person. Okay. Very cool. Yeah, I can see footprints down here walking down this little ridge. I do wonder if you could find petrified wood here, like you can find petrified wood in the petrified forest in a similar landscape. You probably could, because it's sediment from a similar time period. These are old sediments, sort of like the sediments in the Badlands of South and North Dakota. There's all sorts of old fossils in those landscapes. And I don't want to forget about the Badlands of North Dakota. I actually prefer the Badlands of North Dakota compared to the Badlands of South Dakota. And that's because they're a little more gradual, and that makes them a little more lush. And I think that makes for a more scenic place. Fun fact, this is actually a pretty important story. President Theodore Roosevelt, I should note that the Badlands of North Dakota are largely protected under the Theodore Roosevelt National Park. It's named after Theodore Roosevelt because Theodore Roosevelt went to the Badlands before he became president and sought refuge there after his mom and his wife died on the same day, which is, that's tough luck. So he went there and hunted buffalo and all sorts of things, and that changed him. At least he says that experience in North Dakota changed him, and it really shaped how he would govern in his future life. So yeah, the North Dakota Badlands, highly underrated. I really like the North Dakota Badlands. I think they're better than the South Dakota Badlands, but in any case, Theodore Roosevelt National Park, another national park in the Midwest that protects Badlands. But Badlands are good lands to many people and to many animals. Don't forget it. It's astonishingly quiet right now. Once the wind goes, once the wind dies down, there's nothing left. It's actually much more pleasant to walk on these ridge tops rather than in the drainages. They're both the same grade, but you get to see more when you're up on these little elevated areas, so more enjoyable overall. And it's a little less sandy on top here. It's a little more compacted, so that's another plus. It's just really cool to see the forces of water. Every single crack and crevice, every single drainage you see is the imprint of running water. I feel like there's got to be all sorts of cool little rocks to find around here, whether it's agates or petrified wood or whatever. I just feel like this is the type of landscape you would find something just laying around. But haven't seen anything like that quite yet. This is super cool, actually. Look at these patterns. All from little rivulets running down the little slopes here. Crazy. So one of the reasons why this is such a cool thing to see is that this is another reminder that everything in nature that happens on a small scale happens on a big scale. And everything in nature that you can see on a big scale happens on a small scale as well, and shown through many magnitudes of scale in between. And so when you look at these little drainages here, the little patterns that the running water has carved into this slope, this is an exact reflection of what you might see looking at the surface of the earth from 200,000 feet from the surface. We're looking at a map, basically. The big channels, well, maybe that's the Mississippi. Maybe the Missouri River we see flowing into it. And some of the smaller ones, maybe that's the Minnesota River. Maybe that's the Illinois River, the Wisconsin River. So It's very, very interesting, and you can see all sorts of different types of drainage patterns depending on the type of slope in which the water is flowing down. So here on this little mound right here, the channels are more parallel versus this one right here. It's more of a dendritic pattern where it almost looks like a neuron or a tree, where all of these little channels join together to form medium-sized channels. They flow to bigger channels, and they all join to this fat channel in the middle. So it's kind of an amazing place to study geology. The Badlands are, for many, many different reasons. Hydrology as well, and just the history of Earth in general. By the way, these are pretty cool stripes right here. Now here's another example of the entire concept that I just laid out, where things in nature on big scales are replicated in small scales and vice versa. You ever notice that when you look at mud that's caked, or you ever looked at the floor of Death Valley, or a stock photo on the internet of drought, you ever notice that the little cracks form hexagons? You ever notice that? It's for the exact same reason why honeycombs are hexagons. It's for the same reason why clouds form in hexagonal shapes. It's for the same reason that all sorts of things in nature form in hexagonal shapes. I don't know exactly what the reason is. I've had people try to explain it to me, and the main gist I got was that they don't even know what they're talking about. But maybe it has to do with surface area or density or water, properties of water. Maybe it has to do with volume and area, and I don't know. But if somebody could explain it to me, that'd be much appreciated. But it is something that is replicated on many, many scales on this earth, and the examples I mentioned are just a few. It's so cool. These patterns are amazing. So another example of the hexagon thing that just came to mind, I think that it's called columnar basalt. It's a volcanic feature. Basically, it's just a way that rocks also harden and crack into hexagon shapes. So hexagons are everywhere, but I'm not sure why. These are cool patterns right here. All right, so right now I'm walking into drainage, and the channel's pretty broad, but it gets broader and broader as other channels, sort of like tributaries, flow into it and increase the flow. It almost looks like the stream bed of a braided river. But this is on a very small scale. So this channel will keep growing in size. We'll see how big actually it gets. Should be pretty interesting. But it basically becomes a creek. In a period of heavy rainfall, this area would be a flash flood zone for sure. So there's where we came from, and this is where we're going. There's a plane up there. This is a really cool area. Okay, another thing that I can see right now, something on a small scale that's replicated on a large scale. This is a great example of a meandering channel or meandering river. See how it goes back and forth? That is exactly what, let's say, the Mississippi River does. For most of its length, at least towards the lower reaches of it, as it goes down toward the Gulf of Mexico, what water does when it flows on an extremely flat surface, which in this case, this is one of the flatter surfaces we've seen. What water does is that since gravity can't pull it in a very predictable direction, it meanders, it twists and turns kind of painstakingly, and it doesn't know what to do. At some point, the forces of erosion will weaken the necks of the meanders, and then the water will cut through, making a shorter path. So in this case, that's exactly what it did. Originally, it had this curve, but now the water's coming through the middle here, and it's creating a more efficient straight path. The same thing happened here. It originally went all the way around, but now you can see the fresh channel is right here, cutting through the middle of it. We can only expect that at some point the same will happen to this meander right here. Another thing that's great about the Badlands is that it's a very otherworldly landscape. Makes you feel like you're on another planet. And here's another great example of a large geologic process that we can actually see here on a very tiny scale. This is an alluvial fan. I think that's what it's called. It's the dry version of a delta. So you could also think of this as a river delta. You see how this channel right here departs from this slope and it enters this big channel. You can see how it spread its deposit. It spread its sediment right here on the main channel of the larger stream. So that is a perfect example of deposition. That's exactly what happens in Louisiana. It's what happens in Egypt with the Nile River. It happens everywhere. It happens in the desert when rain erodes mountain ranges, and the river channels or the stream channels carry that sediment down to the desert basins, and then it deposits that sediment in the desert basins. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. It was eroding, the water eroded sediment from up there, and it brought it right here. It's depositing it in the channel, and perhaps it's taking it even further down to the big river of the region, the Little Colorado River. If you want to see a great example of an alluvial fan, go to Google Maps, look at satellite views of the deserts of California. They're all over California. Inland California, Southeast California is a great place to view them. I think there's a big alluvial fan, like a big deposit of sediments. Maybe it's by Lancaster or Palmdale. There might be another one kind of just east of the San Bernardino Mountains. They're all over that area. You get a similar thing as you get towards even drier parts of the Mojave Desert, toward the Arizona border, where you get deposition by channels coming out of the mountains, and they create big, what are called bajadas, I think. And those are just what make up the desert basins of the Southwest. Here's a pretty great panorama. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep going down this channel until it meets up with a similar channel, a channel of similar size, and then I'm going to follow that channel back up to get to where I parked the car. It's going to be on the other side of those taller Badlands. Looks like an old cow pie. Guys, I looked up the hill and I thought I saw something rusty. So I walked up to it. I think I just found a hoard of petrified wood, like a big stash. And it's kind of just in the crease of this drainage, and it's been kind of getting broken apart by the running water, I'm assuming. But as far as I know, that's all petrified wood. I don't know. I feel like I might be mistaken. Maybe these are just rocks. I mean, petrified wood is a rock, but I don't know if this is petrified wood. It just reminded me of it, but I can't say for sure. All right, we've made it to the junction. This is where the two creeks join together and form this larger stream. I swear there's a word, like a term for when two rivers join together. I'm not sure what. So I'm gonna follow this other stream upstream and take it back to the car. Those red cliffs are where we started, just about. It's a pretty noisy bird nearby. Not sure what kind of bird it is, but he's been chirping all day. It's pretty cool. Very beautiful. It's very smooth. So the tricky part now is finding a good place to ascend the orange cliffs. So we'll see how that goes. So the reason why I want to find a spot that's a little more gradual to climb up is that, as I noted before, all of the sediment here is very soft and crumbly. Look at this little meandering channel. It's very soft and crumbly, so if you go up a spot that's too steep, you might slide all the way back down. And All of your efforts will be for naught. So I'm hoping I can just climb up one of these fins and then take it all the way to the top. Kind of like how I descended on one of those way back when I was first coming down in here. We'll see. Okay, let's go up here. And take it around and then take it to the top. All right, made it to this part. So now I just have to climb up this little thing. And hopefully that's not too difficult. Wow, this area is deep. This is the first challenge here. Might have to get on my hands and knees. Actually, I think if I get a running start, it'll be all right. I'll let you know. All right, running start was a success. Every step I took, I slipped back like half a step though. So it was a little difficult, but if you have momentum, it's perfectly doable. Take a look at this. This is super cool. Just got to follow this up. All of these little ridges join together and form big ridges, sort of like all the little drainages join together to form big drainages on the sides of the slopes. But just got to go up. It's really nice to, oh, look at that flagstaff. That mountain over there is the tallest mountain in Arizona, Humphreys Peak in the San Francisco Peaks. Something like 12,633 feet above sea level. It's alpine tundra up there. It's very different from the rest of Arizona. Right now we're in the cold desert. If you head south of the Mogollon Rim, because we're on the Colorado Plateau right now, but if you head south off the Colorado Plateau, that's where you get into the Cactus Desert. That's the hot desert. It's a very different kind of desert from where we're at right now. You can see some imprints. Not far from the top. It's really cool to see where the Badlands melt into the grasslands, sort of like South Dakota. Another interesting thing is that just to the west of us, you have the largest continuous ponderosa pine forest in the world. In South Dakota, just to the west of the Badlands, you have another very large tract of ponderosa pine forest, and that's the Black Hills of South Dakota. It's a bit crazy to look over the landscape and retrace your steps in your mind. Look at the places where you were just walking. It's like, wow, I was just down there in the maze. We're really getting close now. I'm gonna get on my hands in this part here. There's a big bird over there. All right, I'm happy to report we made it past the hard part. Home stretch here. All right, back on top. Oh. Gosh, I'm out of breath. Wow, just went over the edge there. Much easier going up than going down, as is the case with really anywhere you are. See my footprints out there? That's crazy. It's like walking on the moon. All right. Well, I'm gonna walk on the road. Oh, there's the car. I'm gonna walk back to the car now. But that was a really cool stop. I've had this place on my list for quite a while, so I'm glad I was able to check it out. That was the Little Painted Desert County Park, I believe. We are in the Painted Desert of northern Arizona. It's called the Painted Desert because I think it's pretty obvious. Colorful rocks and whatnot, a large variety of color. And then we're here in the Badlands, so it's even more pronounced with all the layers and whatnot. All right. Well, thanks for watching this video. I hope you liked it. I'll see you guys next time. Dog. Canine.